Yeah, I think the Wall Street narrative, they have a few points, and I think a lot of them been easily debunked. But they talk about information and what they do with the information. They talk about the case in Europe with the lawsuit in Europe against them, and they also mention like government austerity. Like if the government has to cut back and Palantir's depending on the contracts because the majority of their contracts are government, how are they going to survive losing these government contracts if it ever happened? What do you say to a few of those points?
How would they survive if they lost a governmental contract?
Well, this is like the kind of like the Wall Street narrative, right? Like the people that
Right.
are bearish against Palantir. They mention information and the lawsuit in Europe and government austerity. Like if the government cut back, will it affect Palantir?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely would affect Palantir if the government stopped paying them. I think, but they have a buffer for them. So, like for example, like the first response is I don't think the government's going to cut back because the software is useful. Like at the end of the day, it's binary. Space
Okay.
Systems Command just gave them $43 million in June. The Nuclear National Administration gave them $90 million. They just got $116 million from the Army the other day. So it's like, if there's an argument for why the government doesn't trust them or doesn't feel safe with them, I don't think that argument's relevant just in the past 3 press releases in the past couple months. Number 2, they have some time to get more into commercial if the government were to go back. And I would say another 2 or 3 years, right? If the government were to start scaling back, I think that would happen over the next couple of years, given the contracts that they have. Some of these are like 5-year partnerships, so we're having until 2025. And until then, you got to give them some time to break into commercial. You know, they just went public last year. I think we got to be patient with them, give them time, not judge them that harshly as Wall Street will judge them, which is exactly what happened with Tesla, and just trust in the vision. And if you trust in it, then I think it's going to work. So if the government were to decline, yes, that would be bad. I just, A, don't think that's going to happen. And B, if it does, there's enough time for them to get into commercial.
What is their current retention rate? Like how many people are renewing their contracts? Do you have them offhand?
I don't know the number offhand. Last time I checked, I believe it was in the 65 to 70% range. I can check that on for you. But when they get someone, it's pretty sticky. It's like,
good.
Like people are using it, you know?
Do you have any like success stories? Like I know they have contract with Airbus, kind of like a before Palantir and after. What was the benefit with having Palantir, using Palantir? Are companies saving money? Are they becoming more efficient?
One case study was with BP. So I think this is one of the highly publicized one. BP is a British petroleum oil company. They integrated Palantir, I believe, March of 2021, around that time, into their supply chain and logistics. And basically, they just wanted to make sure how much oil do we have to drill from certain parts? How can we not waste oil? How can we make sure we don't have accidents? Because BP in 2008 had the horrible oil crash, and they saved estimated $50 million from that partnership with Palantir. So whatever
for the year, was that for the year?
For the year.
Oh wow, good.
Yeah.
And what did they pay for the contract?
That I do not know. And that was the thing. Like, so I said in one of the videos where I did, I was just like, even if they paid $49 million, you know?
Yeah.
So
they saved money already their first year.
Right. Now the average client cost is about 8.1 million. So let's round it out to like, let's say they maybe paid 10 million for that. You know, saving $40 million for 10 million is, and I'll send you the case study so you can link it in the description of this so people can read it. But I mean, it's good stuff, you know, and that's an oil company in particular. I'm doing another video later about renewable energy. I think the renewable energy space, you know, that's a multi-trillion-dollar market. That's going to need a lot of data optimization. I think if Palantir can put their hand in that, you know, I think sky's the limit for them there.
You made a video and you spoke about how Palantir is going to be in the next generation of analytics. Can you just give a few points on what you meant and break that down?
Yeah. So, I mean, this was a video on the Internet of Things. And the Internet of Things is this kind of buzzword that essentially refers to hardware and devices that use artificial intelligence to make the world more smarter around them. So Siri is a very basic example, or Amazon Alexa, or whatever it is. You talk to a device, it talks back to you. There's a lot of neural language processing that's being done in order for the device to understand things about you. At the highest of levels, you have governments with like drones and stuff that have all these sensors on them so that targets are effective and that they're able to actually eliminate terrorists and stuff like that. And then at a smaller level, you have things like robots, some of the stuff that Tesla's working on, where if we believe in the future that, you know, we're not going to have to go on skyscrapers to put bricks on bricks or something, we're just going to have robots do these like really hard tasks, then you need AI and Internet of Things sensors on these things. So next generation analytics is connecting the hardware of the real world with the software that needs to analyze how the hardware interacts with the real world, whether that's responding to Siri or whether that's a robot scaling a business or scaling a skyscraper and actually, making sure it can do an effective construction job. And Palantir software is at the center of what that could look like in terms of how devices actually interact with the real world from a software hardware perspective. That stuff, again, is the next 10, 20 years type of stuff that's away. Right now, it's just like optimizing decisions for businesses. But if they're able to play a role in that, same thing with crypto, right? Like the biggest use cases for crypto are probably 10, 20 years away if it gets like really big scale. And if, Palantir can operate in blockchain and really provide services for companies to be able to understand what to do with their own specific segments of the blockchain, then that's where you see a market opportunity there.
Okay. So what's their current ratio of private companies to government? I mean,
they're about 60-40, 60 to the government and 40 to commercial. They just got 54 new clients in their Q3 earnings, which is like ridiculous, right? Like and those were high paying clients. That was really good stuff. So, I mean, 60-40 is not good. Obviously that would rather be flipped like 70-30 commercial government. That would, I think, make it really optimal, but I think that's going to take time. And, and I think if you trust in the company, then it'll happen.
Talking about the last quarterly report, what did you think about it? There was a lot of negative feedback. Felt like it was really scripted. I did a live listening with Tom Nash and Sasha, and that was kind of like the sentiment was just like poorly done. What's your opinion? And the stock price has tanked, dropped quite a bit after those earnings. What's your opinion on the earnings?
Well, I don't think the numbers were bad at all. I mean, like they reached revenue targets, they exceeded them, 30% year-on-year growth. They're on for guidance, 1.5 billion in revenue this year, or 40% growth in the end of Q4. Like I think that the numbers were phenomenal. I just think in general, high growth tech was going to collapse in December. Like, and I'm not there's Nostradamus. I'm saying that after it collapsed, like it seems now hindsight, like there was no way that the market was going to allow valuations to be what they are, i.e. Peloton. With inflation, the way it's going, right? Yeah. So to me, it's like when I saw it crash, like the day it crashed, about $3,500 more of it, because I was like, this is stupid. And then it started crashing more, and I started buying more, and I was just like, this is dumb. Like all these companies are crashing. This really is not a question of their earnings. Now, could they have presented it better? Yes, but I think they could have had even better. They could have had another $20 million of revenue. I literally don't think it would have changed anything. Just like all these new contracts they've been getting, they've released like 7 PRs since that Q3 earnings. Nothing has fundamentally changed because I think the macro level economics of the stock market are not in favor to high growth tech companies right now. So yeah, earnings sucked, but I don't think it played a factor in the stock.
What are your most bullish, like if you had to pick 3 points on your most bullish points on Palantir, what would you point out?
I think number one, their leadership. I did a video on Peter Thiel and his whole philosophy of going from 0 to 1 and being a company that doesn't have competition. I think that's an amazing philosophy to build a company around. It's kind of how I'm trying to build my startup. So that in and of itself makes me extremely bullish. And also Thiel owns about like 20 million shares or 2.5% of the company. So he hasn't, pumped and dumped or anything. Like he actually believes this is going to take off and his money's where his mouth is. So I think that's number one. Number two, believe it or not, is I actually believe the stock-based compensation is good. I'm going to be doing a video on this, but like, I think at the end of the day, they are fighting for the highest types of talent in the world. And if you have to dilute shareholders, even at the tune of like, I don't think it's going to be 10%, but I think if it goes to 4 to 5% over the next 4 or 5 years, I think it can still reach a Salesforce or close to Salesforce market cap with that dilution if the talent that they're getting is going to be able to produce the results that they need. Because that talent is going to stay. You've had people who have been in the company for 17 years. Like that doesn't happen outside of the founder. Most of the time the founder leaves also. So I actually think stock-based compensation is phenomenal. It's what Tesla did from 2014 to 2019. So
it's a good point because they have to compete with people wanting to work in Google and Twitter and Facebook, and they can't pay the salary that those companies pay, so they pay them with share compensation. It's a great point.
And the culture they can't provide. Like when you work at Facebook, you get to like say you're working on the metaverse and you're working on Instagram, and this is like cultural stuff that people our age love. Like when if you say you work at a tech company, it's like you're on this pedestal. For Palantir, you're working on like optimizing businesses for decision making. It's like it's fucking boring, right? So there has to be some type of motive, and there has to be a cultural phenomenon that exists within the company to get people to actually care about the work they're doing. I think stock-based compensation is part of it. And number three, I just think in a general macro sense, I think they can be in every single sector that exists in the world. Like, I think every single business could use them. And that's like my main reason why I put 30 grand into the company. Because I'm like, when I think of
Yeah.
Tesla, I'm like, every country, every person in the world can buy an electric car and have it drive themselves and like use the data from that electric car to help them in accidents. Like, we're talking about cars. That's the most consumer thing in the world.
Yeah.
So when I think about
Yeah.
businesses having to optimize their data, I'm like, I think every single business will be able to use this to optimize their data. And I think that's going to work.
I'm extremely bullish on Palantir myself. But I think like if they ever want to reach that $1 trillion market cap, I think they have to go B2C.
Yeah.
What do you think it'll take for them to go to B2C and be a household name, kind of like the same way we can download Microsoft? Maybe we can one day download Palantir and use it at home for something or use it on our phones. Do you ever see something like that happening?
Yeah, me and Tom just talked about this in our podcast. He made a good point that I didn't even think of. He said the top 20 companies in the world outside of Salesforce, and Salesforce is like number 22, have some B2C.